Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Ser Ezra, the Watchful. Friends, welcome back. We got some big, exciting news to talk about today. Jon Snow, Kit Harington, he does know a thing or two, okay?
Hey, it's the Jon Snow Show, right?
Let's go.
Look, whether this thing there's truth to this thing or not, I've seen a lot of people go back and forth on it saying there's no validity to it. You can't trust Hollywood Reporter and some of these other sites that are saying it. But then I don't know, IGN started saying it and some of these other bigger things, right? And as you and I cover enough Star Wars to know that, hey, a lot of these things that they're like, remember they said a long time ago that, hey, whatever her name is that was going to play Sabine. Everyone's like, you can't trust this. And then, here she comes out of Star Wars Celebration. So exactly. I feel like we're at that stage. Yeah. Right.
Oh, that always happens. Yeah. People are saying that this is going to happen. Look how many people are covering this, and it's rumored. We knew these projects were in development to some level or what have you. So like, it actually doesn't surprise me that much. I actually thought, and we're going to get into it, I thought there was story to tell still. So this is great.
That's kind of going to be the purpose of our conversation today is, let's just assume that this thing is real, right?
Yep.
What is it? What story do we tell? So we're going to look at stuff that we sort of know right now is happening in the books that didn't make it into Game of Thrones. Stuff that we think is going to happen or that in theory could happen, and then stuff that is just sort of a natural, I guess, progression of potential avenues, or even just where we leave the show. What story would you tell going forward right now, if you were to just say you pick off right where Jon walks off into the cold sunset, right? In the end of Game of Thrones, the series finale, where do you start right there and go forward?
I mean, that's where we're at, right? So we just left off. I kind of think they have to. This is a continuation of the same show. It's the sequel, if you will. And I think you pick up with him leading the wildlings back. I mean, reclaiming some of this land, right? We saw the battle at Winterfell. We saw him there, and now to go beyond the wall. I mean, he's essentially becoming the king beyond the wall, right? I mean, that's the whole thing is he's going to become the king beyond the wall. He was the king in the north for a while, and he kills Dany, or does he? Which I'm not convinced 100% that she's dead. She was carried off. Why? Why is there? Right. Why carry the body off if there's not going to be some sort of That's a whole other thing. We'll get there in a second, but I would pick up right there with him. It's a show about him, so you. From a different perspective, a different point of view, you're beyond the wall, and now you're hearing about things happening in the South. And you could reverse the whole thing, right? Is that this is where we do a lot of our production from, a lot of our happenings and plot points are there, and we hear rumor about things from the wall. I mean, what's left of it, and sort of what happens in Winterfell and his ties there, and it all kind of as the news goes north. Things can get lost in translation, right? I mean, things could be changed. So I just think it'd be a complete turn to kind of tell stuff from that angle. I still think there are going to be people who, depending on how things are run, I mean, you have Bran sitting on the throne, right?
Yeah.
I'm like recalling all of this stuff. Okay. So his brother, cousin, whatever you want to call, right, is on the throne and is connected to the Werewood Network, can see things. So there's that. You have Sansa in the north, Arya over there. All of his family are still big players in this Game of Thrones. It won't surprise me at all if you did bring in someone like, I mean, I know it's way out of sequence, but if you wanted to do like a young Griff, or somebody else tried to usurp the throne, or maybe people don't trust Bran, or who knows what it could be. Maybe people want him to return to power and they think they start to rally behind him or something, I just...
Yeah, I mean, so just like the on the most basic level, right? For me, the stuff that they're gonna do is probably, I just feel like you'd have like a character like Val, right? I mean, she to me is almost okay. If we're gonna do a Jon show and it's gonna take place afterwards, here's a character that was in the books. She already sort of is, in a way, kind of a love interest for Jon Snow. She's right, the wildling princess.
Right.
Um, and she already sort of is a love interest for Jon Snow, and they didn't include her in the show whatsoever. So here to me is, now you're going to introduce this character. Now her role in the books could be totally different. She might die. She's actually headed to Hardhome right now,
True.
and she may die there.
Right.
So do you bring Val in? If, let's just say this John, we don't know. Of course, it's obvious still. Is it real? But we're just, for the purpose of today's conversation, we're assuming it is.
Yeah.
So let's just say that this thing is real, and we're going to get, let's say it's 6 episodes, like the way Disney does shows. Not that HBO does it that way, but let's just say, for sake of argument, that it's 6. So you get 6 episodes. I feel like you'd have to have some sort of a love interest for Jon. I'd say this is where you bring in Val. Maybe there's a wildling war. Maybe maybe there's still wildlings up there that didn't leave, and they felt like Jon betrayed him by taking all the wildlings down, so they had to fight off White Walkers and everything by themselves.
Right.
So, Hardhome, when Hardhome was destroyed, Jon wasn't there to save them. There's a lot you could do. They could still view him as a Southerner. So I think you could maybe have Val be that opposing character, and then whether they get together or whatever. But I think that's certainly a plausible character. I think that's, if this thing is real, I feel like she has to be a character in it.
Well, yeah, just because of the setting, the location, you need someone who then people go read more about that character in the book. They're like, okay, who is this? Where could she go? Little is known about her. And you're right. You almost would need, it's not just that easy, right? He's just not going to walk up into, beyond the wall and settle the wildlings. They're not all going to just trust him automatically. So if he has to earn that trust, and it's like this competition, and he's trying to win over Val and other wildlings, that would be a great way to do it, because there is some evidence for that in the book. Yeah, I mean, gosh, like she's that. I can't believe I didn't think that's amazing, dude. Like, because next to nothing is known about her. You still are gonna. Do you think they're gonna rebuild the wall? Do you think is there gonna be a reason to do that, or is it all coming down? Because there's that whole divide. That's the other thing too, is that they've come to the wall, then they were pushed further south to Winterfell. Now he's leading them back to kind of reclaim some of this land. There's going to be conflict. The whole thing could just be him sort of uniting the people. An interesting thing in the text that happens a lot is, I was like, Sir Arthur Dayne at one point, he has to like rally the local people in the when he's battling the Smiling Knight or whatever. And then there was when Mance Rayder had to go beyond the wall, he was a crow who had to then win over the people and unite them in some way. So can Jon do that? And how are things going to shift up there? Do the wildling, do they go back to their culture before, or does this culture that was south of the wall start to extend beyond the wall a little bit? I mean, is that possible?
Right. And that's a lot of the political aspects of it too. And then if you want to start bringing back, I mean, gosh, you really could just, it's like you really could. There's still a definite like forward progression from where we're at when we finish Game of Thrones, because there's still tons of things you could do. They didn't even touch Blackfires in the show. You could still totally go that route, even if you don't go down the idea that Dany is like, if you go down the idea that Dany isn't alive and like she's dead, and they don't resurrect her because she had that conversation with Kinvarna. What was that going to turn into?
Sure. Yeah.
Even just stuff that we have seen in the show universe. And remember, let's just say in theory that this thing comes out. Well, it is going to come out if it is real, of course.
Yeah.
After House of the Dragon. What's to say that they don't establish some new thing in House of the Dragon that could be a theoretical threat years down the line, and that's what Jon has to deal with. Because I got the map pulled up here on if you're watching on YouTube, and like, once you really start actually kind of looking at this, by the way, of the known area of the North, and I really like this map because it's really detailed and really well done. It's like, man, Hardhome's like way over here on this side. Here's the Haunted Forest, the Fist of the First Men. We don't even touch like the Ice Rivers, the Frozen Shore. We don't really go past the Frostfangs or like the land of always winter. There's still so much in the North, like the real North. We have no idea what's even up there.
Well, the I guess sort of the magical element to this is you have the Children of the Forest. You would still have maybe a few others or something. I don't know, like what the whole deal might be. There may be more at the Land of Always Winter. There will be kind of are there more giants? Are there others that were left behind, like you said, dire
Right.
wolves and things like magical creatures in the werewoods? I don't know if you wanted to bring this up at this, but you were talking about with Jimmy, are the video game. You were talking about some of the mystic elements,
Yeah,
right?
so
Like
the
forest.
yeah, so the Game of Thrones Telltale game. So Telltale is this company. They made a few games. They made a Batman one. They made their biggest one was Walking Dead. I think they shut down. What they do though is they make these sort of choose your own adventure games where it's kind of like you're playing a character and you get two choices, right? Go do this thing or do this thing. And then you decide to pick something, and what ends up happening is that it affects the entire story that you're going to get throughout the rest of the game. So there's a Game of Thrones one, and it was only one season. It's like 5 episodes or something, and it's about this House Forrester. And one of the things is you have to go north of the wall, and they're like the North Grove is this thing. And it's like the Game of Thrones actors and everything came in and did voice work for it. I mean, everything, it's like clearly, like Amelia Clark and Kit Harington and all this stuff that's going on up there in the game. And so it's like there's another mystical element, right, that I'm sure they talked to George about or something. So yeah, so here's a comment too, because this has kind of gotten me thinking about this. Joe here says he'll discover the heart of winter and the origin of the long night, Night King, and a potential Night Queen. Because we didn't essentially touch on that, like in the show, right?
Right.
So it was I mean, the idea of Azor Ahai could still exist in this theoretical, Jon show.
Yeah. More explanation, just discovery of things that were going on there could be. Just give it more time, more room to sort of breathe. I think would be really cool. And just for folks who are kind of coming into the chat, yeah, we're assuming right now, we're just kind of doing.
This thing
chat
could
about.
totally. For a lot of new people joining the chat here on YouTube, that we're just having fun today and assuming if this thing is real, which it
If it's
still
real.
could, it could still not be, but if it is real, what would that look like? What do we think it looks like in a post season 8 Game of Thrones universe? What from the books did they leave out that they could use as source material to bring back in? And I don't think we would get storylines like I don't think we would get storylines like Lady Stoneheart, although in theory they could have resurrected her and she could still be out there. You know what I mean? I'm not saying they're going to, but young Griff was never even touched on. What's to say a new Targaryen doesn't come down?
Yeah.
Like after, post everything and say, I'm going to depose Bran.
Well,
and they want to go that route.
What if all of our theories about Sir Arthur Dayne and the old Kingsguard coming north and Rhaegar Targaryen and Mance Rayder and all that kind of stuff? I know their stories are kind of wrapped up in the show, but some of the rumor and the lore, Jon finds evidence that they all were a part of this big plot to kind of help him. I mean, what's also to say that Dany isn't? Look how many people were resurrected, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? She was stabbed, Matt. That's it. Lady Stoneheart was like, Catelyn was her throat was slit and she was in the river for 3 days. There's nothing to say Dany can't be brought back. That's
well, and the interesting idea about a potential Dany coming back in a future show is that she did talk to remember Kinvarna came up. Kinvarna is a character who shows up like once, right?
Yeah.
And talks to her. Another character who showed up and talked to her once was Quaithe.
Yeah.
And it's like there's another big mystery that you could use to go forward.
I mean, all you have to do, Matt, at the end of this Jon Snow spinoff, right, is find some evidence, or like the cliffhanger for going into a season 2 of it would be Dany's back. They wouldn't need to have her in it at all the whole time, and then boom, she's back. And then think of the conflict that those two have, right? You stabbed me, you killed me. I mean, like it's war, buddy. At that point,
Jon was stabbed too.
He was for the watch, the watch. I just think it's wild. Did you see that tweet though? I guess HBO Max has tweeted saying they showed the picture in response to all this rumor. They tweeted that picture where they said, I know nothing or whatever. What did they say? They said, I know nothing, with a picture of Jon Snow, just to kind of
that to me is them fanning the flame, because there's
Isn't that crazy?
Otherwise they could easily come out and say we have nothing in development at this time. Like, or they just wouldn't even respond at all.
And what's the
People make
danger?
because people make tons of comments all the time about it. Right. But it's an easy way for them. It's an easy way for them to say, like, let's say in theory that, or let's just say there is no actual Jon Snow show in development. But what happens is that they sort of leak a potential that there is to see what the fan response would be. And now everyone's blown up, feeling like there's obviously heat for it. So now they're like, okay, well, maybe we will.
Right. That's what I'm thinking, is that there's no reason for them not to just go ahead and allow this to blow up and really see where it goes,
Right.
So, yeah.
Comment here on YouTube, Joe saying, I tend to think Beyond the North is a giant frostland, almost like the top of two trees connecting Essos and Westeros, and even potentially even Sotheros. Yeah. And then another comment here. If Westeros does connect to Essos, it would be super interesting for them to just end up in like ET. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, where do you go? I mean, Arya is sailing, and you could totally do a story about her adventure. Bran down in King's Landing, and then we know we're getting House of the Dragon, obviously. But what's to say that we don't set up something? Star Wars has been doing this now, right? With all of their big things. It was like we got Mandalorian, we got season 1 of Mandalorian and then after season 1 of Mandalorian, they started to begin, Grogu, is he being cloned? What's going on with him? And then you go back to like the Bad Batch show, right, which is run by Dave Filoni, and it's like, okay, we see some of these like test tubes that they're working on and stuff, and now we just saw more in Kenobi. So like, even though they're jumping all over the timeline and like different stories, they're still building this like backstory of an idea of like cloning, which is like a Star Wars thing. So there's nothing to say that we wouldn't do something like that as we get more, because we know for a fact we are getting more Westeros projects. I mean, George has confirmed there's plenty in development. That doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to be prequels, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to go off only his sort of air quote given source material that we already have. There's nothing saying we wouldn't get a season 9.
It's the same thing when the author doesn't want to put in all that work or whatever. He enjoys writing the what's it called, like the script for the season, or like the screenplay, if you will. J.K. Rowling did that for the Fantastic Beast, and Gurm's way better, right? I mean, he actually has a background. He has a background
in writing television and writing for film.
Exactly. So, and he wants that. So to him, that's less intensive, and he has all these great ideas and thoughts that if he had a group that was willing to work with him, he's good, right? I mean, they're willing to give him the time for this. It's really interesting. Our friend Jimmy has said this a lot, and Matt, you've said this too. He felt like they should have given this more time. They rushed season 7 and season 8, and they wrapped things up too quickly, and things didn't make sense. And it is what it is. A couple things are clear. He's almost done with Winds of Winter, so he's relaxing a little bit, flexing a little bit. He's got some more working with HBO on these different projects. House of the Dragon is looking like it's going to be a hit, and then now this little leak comes out, and people look at the fireworks that are going off around it. So he's clearly going to pump them with some information for that.
And what I found interesting was on Twitter, like normally anytime anybody's ever posted anything about Game of Thrones, it's always been like season 8 sucks. Season 8 sucks. I mean, the response on Twitter is almost always on Twitter. I mean, go look. There's so many people saying, you know what? I'm kind of excited for this. And I would say that, one of the things you can always go back and sort of fix something that was bad by adding like good things to it later.
Yes.
Right. I think like Star Wars, again, I think is a great example. You have the original trilogies, which were like lightning in a bottle, some of the biggest movies ever made, absolutely amazing. Everybody loved it. Then he came out and he did the prequels, which were not received initially as well. Okay. But over time, the addition of the Clone Wars animated series and like video games and all this other stuff has really turned the perception around, and the perception of, the kids who watched it like us are now much more of the voice of the internet. And suddenly it's like, wow, everyone's like, the prequels are great.
Right.
Now, season 8, I think unanimously, even still, will still be sort of like viewed as kind of like a letdown. But if you then go add in something and you begin to sort of explain some of the things that happen in the show, like you provide a little more context and you begin to create connections, you end up sort of making things cooler, right?
Yeah.
Take a look at some other fandoms which have done this. Spider-Man 3, for example, right? When
Mhm.
Spider-Man 3 came out, it got panned pretty hard, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it
And
did.
it's still like sort of like, okay, whatever. The Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, also, you go look at reviews, they're like 6s and 7s. Like they weren't received very well. Now you get away from it a little bit and you do Spider-Man No Way Home, and everyone's like, I freaking love Tobey Maguire and I freaking love
Exactly.
Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in like a year, let's say in like 2 years, we get a 6-episode Jon Snow post Game of Thrones thing. And it's good. That's the other thing. If it's good, then it makes the whole deal worth it.
Well, the thing is, right? So Dan and Dave, people largely like label them as the problem. George wanted more stuff. I mean, some of the actors, wanted to continue. Some did not. I mean, it is they didn't want to pay people. Whatever was going on in the management of this whole thing, ended up being a bit of a letdown. So, and then they pushed it back, and we all were waiting for it, and then it didn't land the way that it wanted to. You're right. They can fix it. It's got some time to breathe. House of the Dragon will be a hit. And then from there, they're going to say the story continues. Like the best way you could actually fix the Skywalker saga in the sequels is to do some stuff in the front end, give us a Luke Skywalker series, and then continue the story and make it better. Like, work on it. And I mean, all you have to do is have Rey step back on the screen and say, "I'm not a Skywalker," and we're good. You know what I mean? Like, okay,
whatever. Right. Exactly. Right. Exactly.
Joking, okay.
Right.
Like you can do stuff like that with this show, and no one's going to be there. Actually, I think studios think, oh, is that us admitting that we did something wrong? That's fine. We are fit. We want you to do that. We want you to say, like, do something that fixes something else, and that's fine. We're gonna rally behind that. Look what they did with what was the Zack Snyder cut and stuff.
Let's say we get a show about Arya and she's sailing and she's doing whatever. Like, when Arya, like, let's just say, like, in theory, just stuff that sort of works for television, right? So, let's say Arya ends up getting like her own little squire or something, and she has to begin teaching the squire lessons that she learned, and she starts to reference things that like the Hound said. It's so cool, and it would be so powerful, like on television, because it's like, like that's a lesson that like the Hound taught, and we love the Hound. And it's like,
right,
and then she references like, well, he died, like she has to tell that story, or whatever. Like you can always improve things by going in that.
If those characters can reflect on their past. Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, like anytime you sort of like do something with a show, television, book, whatever, if you make content that is good, then people don't really care, like, oh, it's not in the books or it's not like whatever, as long as it's good. It just has to be good.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, and dude, like what you said, so we're watching right now, everyone's watching it, the Kenobi series, and we just had those great flashbacks where you added more context to something that happened, a master and apprentice relationship in the series. So a book comes out that gives you more information on it, and it adds more to the story. So if you had like you said, Arya and the Hound, and they brought that actor back, even for just a little bit, pay him. They have the money, freaking pay him, and have him come back and do some freaking flashback or something where he said something that was never there in the original thing. And we're like, oh, that's sick. We didn't know that didn't happen. Why didn't we see that?
And you can always provide more context. I mean, and that's the thing is like, like everyone at the end of season 8, everyone's like felt like they were out of Game of Thrones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things about House of the Dragon is coming, and it looks to be really good. Like same things with Star Wars was after the Rise of Skywalker, and it was actually releasing at the same time as Rise of Skywalker was Mandalorian. And like even after season 1 of Mandalorian was over, we still had that sort of hang up over the sequels where we were just kind of like, man, I'm just kind of out on Star Wars. Right. And like even Clone Wars season 7, which was good, was like fun, but it was still out of it. And it wasn't until Mandalorian season 2, which was like so good that it was like, oh my God, I'm back in. So you can always come back and be sort of back in on something as long as it's like really, really, really good. And that's just a cool sort of thing. So let's dive back into the chat here and take a look. So what if we had a parallel Jon series and Arya series, and after a few seasons they meet in the East, maybe in a Shai? Yeah, like that could be sick.
Right. Yeah. What I mean, because that's the whole thing is we want to see like the his family is still out there. The Starks are still there. We don't really get like it didn't feel like we had a good full like resolution, you know? Like things did not feel like they came to a satisfying end really. I mean, you got like little snippets, but their stories are just starting, right? Sansa being the queen of the North and Arya doing her thing and Bran's ruling. What is that like? There is literally so much story that you can continue to tell. And maybe they were wrong about something and you could get into the war. Like we brought up Danny. There's so many things you could do there. So um
Right.
yeah,
So
just a lot of
here's here's a map of like things that are even known. You know what I
Mhm,
mean?
mhm.
In the A Song of Ice and Fire world, like, okay, it's like look how big Essos is, and look how much of it we've not even like begun to like, to
Oh
even
yeah.
sort of like touch, right? Like, okay, we've been to Astapor, we've been to Slaver's Bay, like Pentos, Tyrosh, Mir, Lys, like Valyria. You can still explore Valyria, like
Mhm,
both old Valyria and what's there now.
mhm.
Um, just because like John defeated or Arya, but whatever, like they defeat the Night King, that doesn't mean there's still not other White Walkers out there.
Absolutely. There's more going on. Yeah. That's what I
Right.
was saying earlier is like the children of the forest still have I mean, did they create these bad boys? You know what I'm saying? Like we got that whole episode where they like
Right.
created the others. I feel like they still have some questions that need answering
Right.
and they're still up there. There's a whole cave of
Yeah.
them doing stuff in the
Yeah. I
books.
mean, look, you get over here to like a Shai, and then you have this Althos, right? Which is like another one of the, barely mentioned, or George saying something, right?
Right.
Because George has said some things where he's like, you have Southerros, right? Which is like a southern continent. And then you also he has said that there would be something that would sort of mirror America to the west,
Mm.
right? Like a continent like that. So yeah, and then eventually you might be able to connect and go around and do like all kinds of stuff. There's nothing to say that there aren't plenty more in this world, um threats and things out there, even outside of like what we already know exists, let alone what could also exist.
You know, I love going a little tinfoil because we're just having fun here, and Finn just popped in here, made a nice comment about our. Let me pull this up real quick. So recently, yeah, our theories about Davos and Rickon. Do you think we could see the Skagosi or the unicorns in the Jon Snow show as a part of new world building? Interesting about that. I was actually thinking like, how tinfoil do we want to go? When you bring up the fact that people can be resurrected, flat out, Beric Dondarrion was resurrected. People were brought back from the dead. What's so fascinating about A Song of Ice and Fire is that like there are multiple people who have different identities, you know, the faceless men. Who are they? Varys is always wearing disguises and stuff. So if John, learned of some power and started to reflect on how he was brought back, maybe he goes gets his little brother and tries to, bring him back to life or something, or who freaking knows what quest he might go on and go over to Skagos or something. Maybe there's a reason to go there. There's a rebellion or something. He's got to go.
And then we haven't even begun to talk about Bran. What is that, like the three-eyed raven, like what is he now? Now that
Yeah.
that threat of the Night King is defeated, what is Bran's role? Does he still have that power? Does that power beginning to turn him? Is the great other and R'hllor, are they still up there as
They're still
gods? Were they
fighting.
defeated?
Still
What is,
out. Right.
exactly what is the deal?
Yeah, that's a really good question because there's so many things where, like Bran has this ability to skin change. He's in Hodor and he's learning how to connect to the Werewood network, and he can see things. And like, I mean, his his arc is so ridiculous. What he does in episode 8 is it just sits and waits, right? He's just he's the bait, or whatever. He's going to come try to strike Bran. Well, what how important is he? You know, like what powers does he have? And then who would oppose him? Is there someone who would oppose him that has great power? And would they try to remove him from the throne? Would that be a reason for him to summon his, brother, right, or Jon Snow, to come help him, to come aid in some sort of thing? You know, I feel like that might be something that he could do. Just get. I mean, we still don't know anything about Howland Reed. You know, all the different stuff there's so many things that they didn't answer, that they did not bring to a conclusion, that you could provide some answers to and solve a few things and have some fun Easter eggs, and then still just follow the story of the Starks and what was it like? I mean, did they win renown? Are they now sort of that group that is like largely influencing and in control in Westeros? And then what threatens them? Right, that's the next phase. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like that'd be sick to see.
Is there anybody else who you'd want to see? Like whose story besides Jon Snow, like from like season 8, final episode, you want to go forward? Who else would you want to see?
Well, let me think. So, like the people who were still largely left, who was all on that council? I mean, you had uh
Bronn,
Ron, Davos,
Sam,
um, Sam. Okay,
Tyrion.
yeah, Tyrion. Right. Okay, and then what happens to all like Danny's forces? What happens to all of them? Do
They just sort of leave.
they leave, right? And they just
Yeah, they
go
didn't really. Yeah.
back? I mean, so like are is there more there? I mean, if Tyrion's still around, wouldn't you want more Peter Dinklage
We
and
we didn't even touch Azor Ahai. Remember, if you go back to the early, the early text, right, of talking about the Dawn Age and everything, it felt like there was a war. And remember, like each sort of region had its own story of like what happened when like the long night ended. You have the great hero, you have Azor Ahai, all of these different.
right. Well, who would be something that along that line that would be interesting to follow would be Sam. I think if you have John doing his thing, and I know again they're talking
Right.
like it's own thing just
Yeah.
beyond the
So
wall, but Sam doing something more with the Maesters and learning more and like growing that
right.
scientific
Right.
knowledge base or something would be cool.
So I guess that's what I'm saying is even though we defeated the White Walkers here, what's to say there isn't another sort of similar threat that took
Oh,
place somewhere else,
yeah.
right? If in theory it is like time circling back around of like, well, we had Azor Ahai and we had the Long Night and we had like the Sword of the Morning, all these different like heroes in the Dawn Age, remember, in the World
Mhm.
of Ice and Fire book, describing that sort of initial event. It feels like the same thing sort of happening all over the world. Well, then what's to say
Well,
there isn't something like that happening right now in
first
like
of all,
Yunkai and Marine or
we didn't see that. I mean, that's the thing. That what was kind of underwhelming. I mean, again, there were certain parts of season 8 that were like, "Oh, this is awesome." But what is when you hear about the Long Night, and we kind of thought it was going to cover all of Westeros, right? We thought like this battle is going to stretch all the way down to King's Landing. They're going to have to deal with it. It's going to be snowing and all these different things, and White Walkers everywhere. It did not sound like the Long Night that we heard about. So I'm kind of under the impression that like that was the first wave. I don't even know that we're done. You know what I mean? Like this is
right,
who's to say that we're even anywhere close to being done? Like that seems if that was what the Long Night was about and it was so legendary, like if this was the Long Night 2.0 or whatever at the Battle of Winterfell, that's weak sauce. The why was this a legendary event that stuck around for 10,000 years that covered the land in this great darkness? Like, no, let's see that. Like, let's talk about something else that's
right.
bigger and more epic. I guess
You
it's
could still
just
have the Night's King, right? Because remember in the books, there is no Night King like we see in the show. There's the Night's King who was like the 13th Lord
right.
Commander, who we think might end up becoming this person, but we don't know.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so that could be very well what John stumbles into is reestablishing, setting up their shop there, thinking they're all safe and thinking that things are good, but really maybe Bran is duped in some way. I feel like in the books actually what is happening is that he is being duped. He is being lured into a trap of some kind. I mean, we actually all had theories that Bran was going to be the enemy and that secretly Bran has been if John learned of something in the north where that Bran was really connected to this hive mind and they're using him the same way that they were Bloodraven. By the way, anybody who is not familiar with the book series, go look that up. I mean, Bloodraven is not necessarily a friendly guy. I mean, we all think he's known as a friend, but look at what's happening in the cave and see if he's not a prisoner and if he wasn't maybe captured as he went beyond the wall and if he's not
Right.
working for an evil power or being held by an
Well,
evil power. Maybe that's Bran too.
right. And even if you just begin to look at just the areas that are in the north, right, that we haven't
Mhm,
touched. And let me pull up my other map again. Just because I think it's better for this.
mhm.
Um, so okay. So let me get this pulled up over here. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, Hard Home is here. Like this whole region right here into the Frostfangs is about as far as we go.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like now, Bran, has a vision, right? The Heart of Winter is a place that glimpsed by Bran Stark when he's lying in a coma after his fall. He looks beyond the wall and beyond the curtain of light at the edge of the world, he into what is called the Heart of Winter. What he sees there makes him cry. The three-eyed crow tells Bran that he must, now choose to fly. He knows why he must live because winter is coming. Bran then sees spires of ice rising up to impale him and the bodies of 1,000 dreamers before him, right? Which is like crazy. The crow tells Bran he must choose to fly or die. So some people believe that what he sees is the land, of almost winter.
Right. Yeah. So, and remember, George has recently said in a post, we've yet to see that Winds of Winter is going to take us well beyond anything we've ever seen before, right? We're going to go further north than we ever have. Not just Hardhome, and that we've talked about that, but he's talking about going well beyond and taking us
a good map too.
deep into the land of always winter. Yeah.
Yeah, this is another good sort of map. Yeah. I mean, it's just we don't go like deep over into some. There's so many of these places that like were actually only ever mentioned like once or twice. Like remember the bridge? It's like, man, it's like that's over like by the Shadow Tower. That's like it's like right here, right? That crosses like the gorge. And it's like you only ever talk about that bridge once, but then you go and you start reading the wiki and it's like, man, this thing's sweet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because as vast as the North Kingdom is, right, just south of the Wall, what's beyond that is, and I actually think even if, let's say, the Night King was defeated by Arya, and some of that winter element or that storm has settled down, maybe more of it is accessible, right? They can get further north than they ever have before. Resettle those lands, find old kingdoms. The Fist of the First Men, right, which Matt has up there, right there at the Skirling Pass. The Fist of the First Men was something that it has an ancient fortress, like an ancient sort of structure. So this kingdom, again, 10,000 years ago, might have stretched way up in here, and it's just covered in ice and snow. I mean, go check out Antarctica and see what we got. We got pyramids on Antarctica under ice.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. We also have, if I can, real quick, just a couple really good comments here. So Sifo says, new threat in the Jon Snow could probably be some remaining children of the forest. I 100% think that they still have a lot of questions to answer. And as I've been talking about here, I feel like a lot of the mystical, magical element, the secrecy that's up there, George knows a lot of those secrets and said, let's go explore that. They didn't even come close to touching that. He's weaving that into his final 2 books. There'll be some of it. He's not going to go into all the details, but I feel like there's a lot more to do there.
Well, hey, hold on, real quick. Ouya here has a great has a great thing. Let's send the children of the forest to labor camps. I'm
this guy, he's been tearing the chat up. Actually,
he's been tearing the chat up. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that Val will be introduced as a love interest for Jon Snow, and Tormund and Ghost will probably have key roles. I mean, wouldn't that be super cool to kind of see? We all were rooting for Jon to find that, whether it's with like Ygritte or Dany, whatever it was going to be, it just hasn't happened for him. He's been pretty unlucky, and it would be kind of cool. Val, the big theory about her in the book is that he did steal her in some regard, and that she does sort of belong to him or whatever by the terms of their customs. And again, she's a wildling princess, and he's now. I mean, she holds almost like the most authority of anybody, be it beyond the wall. And then here comes Jon Snow, so that would be a weird kind of like a love interest, but at the same time a conflict, which I think would be brilliant, and would love to see that. Yeah.
So yeah, if we only had say 6 episodes, right, roughly about an hour each, like 50 minutes each, you're gonna have to. I don't know that we would see much else. I don't know that we would see, like, I think we would hear like a letter or something of like what's going on. I don't think we'd actually see like Bran or any of this other stuff, but I feel like, man, you'd have to. They're going to go establish something. My guess is they probably go rebuild Hardhome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have to set up some sort of structure. They got to set up some sort of inhabitants or whatever. And as they set up there, everyone's talking about this heart of winter, the land of always winter. Why is it always winter up there? What's the deal? Is it just because it's far north, or is there some magical element or a threat that would sort of hurt these people? Matt's got the frost fangs in the mountain range there. What's just
we never even go. We never even go.
We have no idea.
We go really. It's like. About the furthest we go is about like right around here, like the Skirling Pass. Like that's about it. We don't really go over to the frozen shore, although it is said I guess in one of the chapters that Mance Rayder's army has men from over here
Yeah.
that come down, but I mean nothing up here. It's all uncharted. Then like the Thens are up here. So my guess is Jon is gonna go rebuild Hardhome. It would probably be if we got like where everything is taking place. And we could remember this it's probably already, if we jump into this, it's probably already a year or two after, would be my guess. It's been it's been some time, would be when they were to start this show.
Right. Here's a question for you. So, do you think we'll be rebuilding the wall, or the wall would be is there a reason for that now? Like
I
that's a
don't
big
think so.
as Bran is sitting on the throne, is he saying like, yeah, we need to like, reestablish that? And then, because that seems like to me it would be then Jon's kingdom beyond the wall. And
right. Well, I could see it, because I could see the people of Westeros saying, yeah, we want to wall, because like the only bad part is that, like, and this kind of screws it up a little bit. Had the Night King marched down to King's Landing,
come on. Yeah.
like
Yep.
it sort of should have been in the show,
Yep.
then you'd have a reason for all these people to say, we want that back up just in case.
Yes. Absolutely, dude. And that's what I was thinking.
They only go to Winterfell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then nobody else really sees it.
So, I mean, we've had a Game of Thrones series, and you have this Jon Snow in between, like sequel, kind of like discovering maybe a greater threat. It wouldn't surprise me if there, like I've said before, there's this greater long night. That this was nothing. This was nothing compared to what we heard about in the Age of Legends, in this whole Dawn Age situation where there was this great long night. And as Matt said, had they gotten down to the Trident, yeah, everyone would freaking know about these things. They still, it's still like all the Northmen. I mean, they made this crap up. I mean, whatever. They dealt with some. They'll probably chalk it up to like wildlings fighting and stuff. I mean, like, how are you going to believe any of these people? There's that disbelief. No one goes really. Like the North Kingdom is so far removed from the other 6 kingdoms.
But let's say they do if they do rebuild the Night's Watch. What's to say that all the people aren't demanding that anybody who was part of Daenerys' army get sent there? Because they just burned down King's Landing and killed like 500,000 people.
Right. That's a good point. That's good. Yeah. Who would then go? Like,
doesn't Jon get sent beyond the wall? It's not just it's part of like the deal.
Yeah, I thought that he was sort of like that's
banished. So I think they are rebuilding it.
Yeah. Which means then if they're doing that, Bran must think there's still a threat. You know what I mean? Like, there's the only reason you would do it is to watch for the next long night to come, or something. And that really, maybe this was, I don't know. You don't want to just.
And that's not to say, and that's not to say that in the books, because obviously this is now like totally different than the books. But let's say that like the threat that George is actually preparing in Winds and A Dream of Spring will be whatever we end up fighting. Jon could theoretically have to go up against, and it's like, and again. This thing, the only news we have from this is that it is confirmed by not like the most credible, but now a lot more and more places are reporting it.
Right.
Sources that there is a Jon Snow show in development. Now, HBO has yet to, even with like DC content, like they don't really do things like the way Disney does. Like when it's like, hey, we're doing a show, it's like you're getting like, it's like 5. You're getting like 5 seasons. I mean, They don't do like these little mini series. They're preparing their sort of, the first one that's even coming is the Batgirl movie, but it's like part of like the DC extended universe, and it's like, no, that's just where we're starting.
Right. Yeah. So you would expect it to be a bigger project. I mean, right now we're calling it a Jon Snow show, but it would
I think it'd be like
Beyond the Wall. It would be sort of one of the, it would be like a Beyond the Wall season 1. Some sort of thing. It needs an epic title of some kind. I don't know what it would be, but House of the Dragon is sick, right? It's a sick title. It's got a good brand. It's tied into Game of Thrones. Yeah, you want to build up this Westeros verse and make these things matter. People are looking for a little bit more mystic stuff. I mean, some of the normal. I mean, we're gonna have some normal shagging going on with wildlings. We're gonna have Val, cast or whatever, if this is the case, and and scary moments where there's snow monsters and stuff like that. But then something will kind of trigger Jon to say, I have to go to the heart of winter. I've got to go figure out what's really going on. There's so many questions we don't have answered. And he was there freaking battling this night kid, this other. They've really not explored or talked about that. And what is it? What is it that they wanted? Did they just want to? Because they again are. Someone mentioned this. The children of the forest created them because the first men came over, cut them down, destroyed the giants, pushed the children of the forest far north beyond the wall, and isolated them. They lost, so they created the others and started the whole freaking long night. So, like, the children are to largely blame for this, but yet the children, are they trying to correct this failure or shortcoming by creating Bran and the Three-Eyed Crow? Is that what they were doing, or are they still puppets? And did they create a monster and a beast that they can't control? Like, that's still not really been shored up, I guess. And I'd love to see that. I think that's where you need to kind of go with it. And multiple seasons, as Matt said. So not just one little mini series, but like, let's really go after this.
Yeah, I mean, it's right now Warner Brothers is obviously in a big shakeup because they're just acquire sort of, whatever their merger with Discovery Channel. So there's nothing saying that we wouldn't get just like a 6-episode miniseries, and that is what it is. But they've yet to ever do that. So I don't know that we can view the Disney model as the same model for this. They're much more about like, hey, we want to build like an epic, like seasons and seasons of something.
Yeah. This is interesting. The Isle of Faces, talking about just like rumors we might get from Winterfell or King's Landing with Bran and his connection to werewoods and all that kind of stuff. Like, would they go further and explore that? Would they have would his kingdom, stretch over there, relocate it in some way? I mean, it's been freaking destroyed. I mean,
Right.
King's Landing was just wrecked or something. Do they need to set up something different? He's the first kind of northern king to really come down and rule. It's very different.
I mean, right. I mean, here's another possible scenario. What if Bran goes like dark side because he's like
that's
the
what I'm
Red
saying.
Crow? I know, and then they have to march it down and take it back. I mean, that's another possibility.
He seemed a little dark side to me, quite frankly.
Jon
he didn't do anything.
could marry Sansa, and then you have to unite the pure North.
Right, exactly. Because again, this kingdom that's going to go beyond the wall or whatever, he's up there. I feel like he's going to have good relationships to some degree with he was the former Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and now is that like an honorable faction? If stuff. I mean, imagine if the North starts to kind of like heal and coalesce together and be prosperous or whatever, and the South is just in discord. Bran starts to like stuff just goes kind of crazy or whatever. Like that'd be wild, So. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot that you could do, and you don't have to do it right away. Again, it's exploring Jon and setting up sort of his arc beyond the wall. I really think the Val casting would be huge. I think a love interest for Jon.
I almost feel like there's no way. There's just no way you, unless you're bringing Dany back in for like the whole thing or something. Then I just don't see how you could not do Val.
Right, and Dany's so beloved that would be so interesting. Like, you love Jon and you love Dany. And if Dany's resurrected at the end of a season 1 Jon Snow series or something, whatever you want to call it, Beyond the Wall season 1, like, and she shows back up and he's like full on with Val, and Val's like badass and awesome and everything, but then Dany's coming back like, I'm gonna take him out. And I mean, you set up for a really interesting conflict or something, because the fandom loves those two characters and we love them together. So it's so tragic that he killed her, And the dragon had like, I mean, Drogo has like respect for him and takes her and flies off with her. It's just nuts.
I know. I'm looking at Emilia Clarke. I don't even know that she really has anything big upcoming projects. Does she have anything really that's sort of she's part of some sort of like MCU project up and coming.
Okay.
There was a lot of rumors that she was actually supposed to replace Amber Heard in Aquaman, which
would be awesome.
Yeah.
Right. That'd be amazing.
But I think they pretty much said like they can't, like they said that they've cut Amber Heard's role down to like almost like nothing in the upcoming Aquaman 2 movie. Like it wasn't even supposed to be that big in the first place. And she might even be completely cut out of it.
Mhm.
But I think they've said any, like, a lot of the rumors are like if there's an Aquaman 3 that she will completely replace her.
Yeah, that would be cool. Amelia Clark is, first of all, just wonderful. We all
I mean,
freaking
yeah,
love her, and it would be really cool to see her come back. I know she does have she had some major health issues, so it's like committing to a
right,
big project would be. Yeah, someone
right.
said she would need paid quite a bit. They'll pay her 100%. If you brought her back,
She got like a Daenerys tattoo. She got like she's got like
oh, she
dragon
loves it.
tattoos. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
police. I mean, yeah,
she would do it for. Yeah, exactly. And they would more than pay her to do that. That's your two most popular characters. Like, I don't know.
there's
I feel
also
like
just no reason for Drogon to carry her body off for them to not leave it open for something.
exactly. They've set up something
It's
there that's
almost like it in a way. It is almost like, oddly, the best thing Dan and Dave might have ever done was just leave the ending open to where they're
uh
like, we just want out, but if you guys want to pick it up and do something, then you can.
yeah, we're gonna like wrap this arc up in a way, and then kind of move on. I
Right.
mean, because George, I think, gave them so much more, and he has like his world is kind of ever expanding, and there's just more stuff
Right.
that he's doing. It's
What if it ends up being that, like, we get like all these shows and everything that come out after Game of Thrones, which we thought was like the pure definitive ending,
mhm.
and it was like at the end of the day, the best thing that ever happened to Game of Thrones was that Dan and Dave didn't like finish it in a way that couldn't have been
Oh
moved
yeah,
on. And
yeah,
then
exactly.
it's like 10 years from now, we're looking back and we're like, wow, Dan and Dave really were the ones who like say like I mean,
Yeah,
it's like that'd
we're
be
like
like the most
thanking them for like.
ironic
I
thing
know,
ever.
I
Like,
know. Well, I mean, part of that conversation, I know it gets people heated a little bit, but whether it's conscious, there's just different things that go on. He gave
right,
them certain plot points along the
right,
way that they did not use, and then finally he said, "Well, guys, here's kind of the end." And they're like, "Well, shoot, we didn't use young Griff. We didn't bring in Lady Stoneheart. There's a lot of things we didn't introduce Val at all. Now we have to make John and Danny kind of hook up together. It's just crazy. It's actually
right.
there's a lot that now."
Yeah, comment here. That is what it is. Yeah, Secret Invasion. It's gonna be with Nick Fury in the MCU. Yeah, so
Oh, cool.
she is getting entered to that, but she's worked with Disney before and stuff like that. But
Yeah, it's cool.
Warner Brothers is like her home. I mean, come on,
Oh,
and
absolutely. It's her kingdom.
it's
It's her
her king.
kingdom.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. So I honestly, man, when I heard this, just look at the internet buzz on this and see how much it's people want to believe it. Some people are coming out saying like, "Oh, this is not confirmed." Whatever. Guys, let me pull it back up here again for you. I mean, when I just feel like these things happen and they're gauging whether or not the
Right.
fandom's going to respond. HBO Max, I know nothing, and
I mean, dude,
then
CNN is reporting it.
yeah, this
And
show
who
changed.
and let me hold on, let me tell you something here. As you know what I always tell people,
Mhm.
follow the money. Okay.
Yeah.
If CNN is saying, hey, the Hollywood Reporter is confirming that there's an upcoming Game of Thrones show, do you know who owns CNN?
Yeah.
Warner Brothers, the same
Yeah,
people that
okay.
own HBO. Like,
So there you go.
if CNN is saying it, then it's obviously happening.
It's happening. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's good news. I think that's amazing. You want this to come out this way where they're kind of like away from it, detached. Other things are kind of talking about it. You're getting the buzz. And like you said, you've seen on Twitter, most of the fans are kind of saying like, I love Jon Snow. I love Kit Harington. I love these characters. I don't maybe like how that's not their fault, right? We had a
Right.
team that was tired and done, and we're trying to adapt source material. They did a great. You have to give them credit. They did a great job adapting source material. They are not good when they don't have source material to adapt, and they blitzed through stuff too far. They actually had to go back and figure out like, okay,
Right.
what else can we do that we didn't do from George's first books that have been published? So, to their credit, the show is what it is because they did that, and we have amazing characters. Now we're beyond that. So now we need to get George involved, and we need to get other people
Well, I'm
that are
sure
going
he
to listen
is.
to
Yeah.
him. Yeah, and
George
that's good.
he's a consultant on all their Westeros Game of Thrones stuff.
Right.
I mean, if they're like, and then I know some people were saying like, I saw some people on YouTube saying like, if George would shut this down because there is no source material. Like,
oh my God.
I mean, first of all, Warner Brothers owns the rights; they can do whatever they want. Second of all,
Mhm.
like they have George as consultant. If they're willing to work with J.K. Rowling on the failing Fantastic Beasts series, like
Exactly.
they're gonna work with George Martin on like the most successful show in the history of television
Yeah,
I mean, they already are. That's why they're doing House of the Dragon. That's why they
it's it.
like
Yep.
they tried to do a Dawn Age thing. I mean,
Well, the monkey stuff is back too, and because you and I broke it down the other day, and you did this with Jimmy as well. Like we think he's closer than ever to finishing Winds of Winter and having that done. So
right.
that's another huge like slap down. Like bam, here's a whole bunch of other stuff and sets up more theories, and then he knows largely where that's going. He's been saying it's a year away for a long time, and then he has the ending book. And actually, Matt, he probably has an ending similar to what not similar, I'm sorry, but like one that is at least open-ended the way Dan and
So
Dave's
he
is.
could come back and write more books.
So it could go on. I mean, that's what the author does, is that it's not, the characters aren't all dead. They still have stories that go on, but that arc of the story is over.
Right.
And it has a satisfying,
I mean, how many
ending.
like look at how many authors like write their story and then they're like, this it's done. I'm never coming back and touching it. None. I mean, George Lucas did Star Wars and he came back and did more Star Wars. And now he still assists on making Star Wars stuff.
Yeah.
On consulting stuff for Star Wars. Like,
right.
I mean, it's rare that you get somebody like Robert Jordan tried to write outside of Wheel of Time. It flopped. Okay, well, I guess I'm just going back to Wheel of Time. Right. Look at J.K. Rowling. I mean, she's tried to do other stuff outside of Harry Potter. And, okay, I just better stick with my fantastic, let's do Fantastic Beasts stuff. Like it's like the Harry Potter universe.
Stephanie Meyer, who did Twilight, is like that. The big rumors that there's gonna be more Twilight stuff coming out at some point. Why? Because that's all she's, that's all she's known for. I mean, like,
right.
So you go back to if this gets me more opportunities, for George, if this has allowed him to be a bigger influencer in the sci-fi fantasy writing community. He's always reviewing books, putting his name on books, helping young writers out, and then doing TV and film, video games, right? I mean, what's that video game that just came out that everyone's freaking out about, that he was involved with or whatever?
Elden Ring. Oh,
Elden
yeah.
Ring.
It's like gonna win game of the year. It's amazing. Yeah.
Right. So he's having a blast doing those sort of things. And if that means he has to stick with something that he wrote that he enjoyed at one point, whether he's lost interest or got defeated because of the Dan and Dave show and the backlash from it or whatever,
right.
Passing by his plot points, it's awesome. And I feel like he's largely involved and has a story for Jon Snow beyond even what's the final book? A Dream for Spring, right? I mean, or whatever, A Wish for Spring. Yeah. So I feel like he has a story that he could kind of continue with. And maybe again, the ending, whatever we saw at Winterfell, he's thinking that's not epic enough. There's way more. Bran's actually a thrall of the heart of winter, like truly, like just like Melisandre saw. She saw she saw the enemy, like R'hllor was seeing this great battle between the great other and then R'hllor, and she sees this in her flames and is not sure about it. Like that all can come back with Kinvara and other priests and stuff. This never-ending war between the two. Like dragons are back now,
Yeah. Insane. Awesome.
So.
Well, I feel already more than 50% confident that this thing is actually happening.
Me too. I'm with you. Yeah, especially when I saw their tweet, I was like, first, it's when they respond just as snarky like that, it's like, okay. And then
I think also
CNN,
well, it's one thing if like IGN and some of these other people do, but I mean, CNN's literally is like owned by. I mean, it's a Warner Brothers thing. I mean, Warner, you know what I mean? It's like it's way different for them to like if they go fact, or something and say, hey, this is being reported. I mean, if you can say, hey, a Jon Snow show's in development, but it's just easy to. I mean. I don't know. I feel like if there's no validity to it, then are you allowed to publish that story?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah.
Then it makes you look bad. Like,
right. Yeah. It's the same company. So,
I mean, I don't know. CNN doesn't do things that make them look bad, but
absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
but still, it's important, like you said, to follow the money and check to see who's related to who, sort of in those companies and stuff. And I think this is again getting a good response. It's getting my stamp of approval. I'm all for it, and I'm looking forward to this rumor continuing and people to talk about it and stuff, because it's I think fascinating. It's something we could really see bring people back to the water cooler and continue all of our thoughts and theories. Let the story continue, my friend. I'm down. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us live. Thank you guys for those who are listening to on the podcast. Be sure to check out stuff over on Patreon. Man, Ez and I've been cranking out musings and all kinds of stuff over there, as well as on Apple Premium, if that's where you like to get it. Be sure to check out any of our other projects as well. Wheel of Time. We do have a podcast called Heroes of the Horn. We talk Harry Potter, the Elder Wand, right? We talk Star Wars, talking Kenobi. And check us out on TikTok. And check out our Bend the Knee TikTok, because
we're about to start blowing that thing up. We've had a lot of fun hammering out Star Wars stuff recently, but the shift after this week is going to be a little more
It's coming.
back to Westeros stuff, and some of that content will appear on YouTube as well, so you can check that out. So awesome. All right, guys. Well, as always, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening, and remember that winter is coming.